Welcome. It is Tuesday, August 19th, and we are here to look under the hood. We're going to talk about parsing standardized learning content for AI. We're going to give everyone just a few minutes to join in. Josh and I were just talking about what's the most expensive repair you've had to do on your car. Josh, do you have any ideas in mind?
You know, it often tends to be that when it rains, it pours with my cars. I have an old 2001 Mazda Protege that, it just keeps puttering along. The exhaust is barely hanging on there, and there's no air conditioning. But, every year it seems I have to just put into it a good 1,000 or 2,000 bucks every now and
Yeah.
then.
Oh, you know what? The guy who drives the Guinness Book of World Records highest mileage car. It's like a Volvo P1800, a little coupe. Do you know what his advice
Mhm.
is?
What?
He said you get record high mileage out of a car if you open the book that came in the glove box and you
Follow
do
the
all the
instructions.
things that book tells you to do when it tells you
It's
to do
literally a
it.
manual.
The car just runs forever. uh, I'm a car guy too. Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Tompkins. Work here at Rustasy. Been here a little more than 14 years. Brought along Josh Stapino with us today. He's been with us nearly 3 years. And between us, we know quite a bit about the standards themselves. And Josh has put his head deep into the technical underworkings of how AI is handling e-learning projects. So Josh works with our product marketing team and has been really focused with our developers on what's happening as we build these next gen tools that are doing all the things that I know everyone is excited about. So today we're going to jump in. We want this section to be interactive, so please add questions into the chat. There's a QA tab on the side. I've got friends from us to see behind the scenes here that will be curating the questions and helping us bubble things up. So feel free to introduce things, concepts, ask questions, whatever along the way. Josh and I play with this all the time, and we're more than happy to kind of pivot as we move along. A little about us before we start talking about what is exactly under the hood of this AI beast. We're Rustasy Software. We're maybe not a household name to everybody on the call, but we are behind the scenes nearly everywhere in the e-learning industry. Generally speaking, we care about things like SCORM, XAPI, CMI5, LTI, AICC. We helped write some of these standards. We serve on IEEE boards that push them forward. We work with this community day in and day out. And effectively, we help save as those standards. We help play those files inside learning systems, and we help manage content for the folks that live in between. At the end of the day, we are going to kind of explore building some of these things yourself. We've got Josh here to kind of go under the hood of some of the challenges that you can expect when you start to play with AI tools that are centered around things like SCORM. And when it might be a little bit faster, cheaper, stronger, better to go and buy things. I know I work on cars all the time. It's a horrible hobby. I don't recommend it, but I do actually really enjoy it. And there are things that I love doing myself, and there are jobs that I never want to do again. So even as an expert with time and money on my side, there are some jobs here that I gladly take to a shop. Josh mentioned, hey, everything kind of falls apart at once. I had to get my air conditioning worked on one of my cars, and I was happy to take it to the shop to get it fixed. It was a very expensive repair, but more importantly, it came with a warranty. And while I'm sure I could have accomplished that job, the components are expensive and the time it would take me wasn't worth it. So I was happy to farm out some of this work. And I want to kind of put that in the back of our minds today as we look under the hood. Some of this work really talented teams can do all day, every day, but the speed, the time, the effort, the reproduction, and the guarantee that it's going to work, those are the things that you might want to consider as you begin to unpack. So we're going to go through the standards real quick for those who are new to SCORM and XAPI and this type of concepts. Why particularly that it is difficult to work with them in an AI kind of environment, how the situation is complicated, what good enough looks like versus not good enough, and some of the use cases that we've seen out in the world. So let's start at the start. What is an e-learning standard? These are effectively tools that help unrelated e-learning products play nicely with one another. They are the technical requirements that allow a package to play and track the exact same way every time in the thousands of learning management systems that are throughout the world. So it's kind of the way that the industry can interoperate. And there are a number of ways that that can happen. SCORM 1.2, SCORM 2004, third and fourth edition, AICC, XAPI, CMI5. There's a lot of acronyms floating around, but there are some pretty common interoperability standards that everyone is comfortable using. And you bump into these things day in and day out. In the car world, there are a bunch of standards in play. And you can think of them as different tools in the toolbox that all do a very similar thing. Josh, when we're working on our cars, it is unfair to say that a screwdriver, a socket, a wrench are all the same tool because they all do the same thing. They all turn a threaded bolt. But in the situation when you're working through these projects, one is going to be much easier to use than another, depending on how that bolt was made and how much room you have. And trying to grab that brand new tool, in this case XAPI, because it's new and exciting, might not actually be the right tool in the toolbox to get the job done. So we have to break our minds of what is new in this world, and we have to focus on which of these tools is right for the fit and the purpose that we have as we train inside of our learning ecosystem. And SCORM is kind of right in the middle. SCORM 1.2 is the most common e-learning standard found anywhere in the world, even though it's over 20 years old. And I know in tech that's a hard thing, but think of it as applicable utility. And not once when I walk into my garage do I grab the tool that is new because I'm excited to use it. I grab the tool that does the job. When I'm trying to explain these things pretty casually, you can think of these e-learning standards as providing the same utility that the MP3 provides to the music industry. You can record a song in an app like GarageBand or Pro Tools. It saves it as an MP3 that then goes all the way to the right-hand side. We can play it in devices. There's probably a triangle button and your noise comes out in the way that it should, the same way every time. And it gives us the ability then to interact with different digital platforms like Spotify and stream these things. The e-learning industry has an authoring tool that saves an e-learning package with a beginning, a middle, an end, and an assessment, and gives us a way to play and track it inside an LMS. They are very uniform type of experiences. And while some of these standards might be over 20 years old, this is the only time in technology where something's age is its strength. And having the foundation and the widespread adoption of these standards makes them really useful even in modern times. SCORM 1.2 takes a while to get adopted throughout the world, but it is still very, very useful. Now, there are some limitations. If you pulled a modern VR headset or LTE connected iPad out of your pocket when they were writing the AICC standard in the late 90s, you would have blown their minds. No one would have been ready to build a standard around some of these technologies. And it's where XAPI and CMI5s tend to come in. But understand that SCORM 1.2 and AICC are among the oldest standards in the industry, and they are still used every day and will be used tomorrow. But more importantly, most of the content that we need to begin to parse for AI is in one of these formats. And I don't think the right move is, hey, go rewrite all of this stuff for the sake of AI. And instead, can we focus on how to get these packages to be more approachable for the modern AI tools that we're using? And a lot of the struggle at a high level is that AI really struggles to just scan these packages. On the surface, it will all look very easy. Oh yeah, this is a zip file. I see a structure of folders and files inside here. I will help you, until you start to go a layer deeper. Each and every SCORM package, AICC package in the world is structured slightly differently. And the standard itself doesn't provide any rigid rules around how it must be packaged inside of the course itself. And that means that every time we open one of these zip files, we kind of have to have a little bit of insight into what's going on. And the more we ask AI to help us with that, the more confidently it gets it wrong. So I work on my own little hot rod all the time, and it's kind of a complicated car. And I was working with a positive crankcase ventilation issue. And I know Josh goes, that's great, man. And while I'm really confident Josh hasn't thought about positive crankcase ventilation in the way I have, when I got deep into asking AI for help on this topic, it was great at giving me the general concept of the problem and what I could do to approach it. But it asked me if it would like to see a diagram explaining what it was trying to get me to do. And Josh, I don't know about you, but I don't think that this is very helpful. So
Looks
even
exactly
though
right.
we're in a situation where you can ask AI for support and deep expertise, it was helpful until it's not. And Josh, I think this little diagram is representative of some of the things you've bumped into as your own expertise with AI problems continues. Why don't you walk us through some of those things a little bit?
Yeah. So we know that SCORM and even other standards don't have a cookie cutter approach to how authoring tools actually implement them. And we see this as we were kind of diving into solving this problem of, we want to implement AI with our course packages, with our customers' course packages. How can we get a better understanding of what's happening inside there? And because there's not this one-to-one approach of how we package these things, it really even comes down to what type of authoring tool is it? Is it a slides-based, basic, kind of normal, traditional authoring tool, or is it web-based? And even among those, web-based authoring tools might do things from, one to another. And we have an example of kind of what we've seen on our own where authoring tool A is a bit more traditional with slides and resources. And the text can be, embedded in all these different resources within each individual slide, which makes it very difficult for not only yourself, if you were doing this manually, but an AI tool to try to find and weed through all these different resources and find all these pieces. It can be quite the maze where authoring tool B is organized by topics, a little simpler, but within each topic, there's assets and then text within those assets as well. So again, a bit of a maze to try to find where this information is actually held. And authoring tool C, while it's all in a singular data object to find all that text, who knows how they're building out those acronyms, how they're structuring it with actually within the code. And you get to the same point with A and B that things are very difficult to find, especially if you have content coming in from all over the place, whether it be third party providers, stuff you're creating on your own, or separate subject matter experts, from other organizations. So once we kind of have a better understanding of what's happening, why there's these inconsistencies, we can start to really realize what does good parsing versus bad parsing really look like. And Chris, if you want to go to the next slide. Um,
Sure.
Bad parsing tends to look a bit more singular. It's focused on what it can get out of the package without going too deep, right? Where they're going to be scraping just the metadata, a title, a description. But as we all know, those are really not indicative of what is actually being done in the course, what the learner is interacting with. Now, you could also go the manual way and either having someone watch it, annotating everything that's happening within the course, transcribing everything, and doing that once or twice or three times to make sure they got everything correct. And you still have the probability of human error. Or you have video, right? Transcribing an entire course as things are going on, which, you know, can work, but again, you're missing a lot of vital pieces that are happening with the learner as they're interacting with the course overall. And another big piece would be that it only works with SCORM. There's other standards other than SCORM. But then two, if they're just taking a one size fits all approach to SCORM and not looking at the individualness of all the authoring tools and the nuances, right? Then you're going to start missing out on where certain compliance codes are or where the text specifically was found within the page. And you're going to be missing out on a lot of valuable data that can fuel these AI tools to either find or uh, help it interact with the learners as they progress through the course. And then two, bad parsing can tend to look like, it's not providing consistent results. I talked a bit about this with the authoring tools, but like if it's not gathering, specifics within each authoring tool, you're going to start to see, things failing. Maybe you upload a course to be parsed and then it comes back with maybe just a description because that's all it found in the metadata table because it doesn't know where all these individual pieces of text are found within the assets, within the slides, within the resources. And even so on beyond that, what are the naming conventions within these data objects, within these slides? Does the parser know how to handle all these different scenarios that can come up when you're trying to go, an articulate course versus Captivate versus Domino versus, all the other tens, hundreds of other authoring tools that are out there. And then this is a bit more about data management, but when you're parsing this content, you also want to make sure that it's not in a singular pod, right? That you're doing your due diligence, that this content, this data is not being mixed and muddled with other content that could improperly inform that model as you try to interact with it or have it output interactions with courses, with admins, with learners, etc. Um, so we kind of know the differences, right? Good parsing versus bad parsing. And then, once you start to get into and figure out what you need from the good parsing, you're going to start to see particular benefits. If you can go to the next slide, Chris.
Mhm.
Um, when you're utilizing proper parsing, you're getting data directly from the source. It's not from the metadata, it's not from whispered down the lane of somebody watching this course a couple of times and transcribing everything themselves. There's going to be far less errors. And this is really the most important part that I want to really harp on here is because when it comes to compliance, when it comes to regulations, when it comes to making sure that everyone is on the same page, you need to know where all those compliance codes, all those regulations are found within those courses. It's vital, if things change, where is all that found with all the different courses, all the pieces of content? Where is all that found so that you can update it as things change, right? And this is really, really the most important part. On top of that, you're also fueling more data from the package within as you parse into your AI tool. This can look like what particular pages are this content and text on. Is there other metadata related to the text that helps inform the model of what's happening on the course on that page specifically? Are there other pieces within the actual package that help find embedded media, videos, PDFs, etc. This can be very helpful that you don't have to extract all that stuff, export a bunch of different files, and then upload that all individually, simultaneously, that it makes it much simpler. And then overall, you're going to see a lot more improved results. Your data is stored singularly, and you're not going to have as much muddledness. You're going to have a bit more understanding, at least your AI will have a bit more understanding of what's happening in these courses. So, kind of with all that in mind, we saw these things happening not only with our own customers across the industry, we took our own approach, and that's where our latest product, Recipe Generator, comes into play. Um, You can go to the next slide, Chris.
Mhm.
Rhapsody generator is a content parser. It extracts text. We've started to expand to embedded media and other different things within a course, even things like questions. We're constantly trying to pull as much that we can out of that course so that your tools, your AI, whatever it is informed and has as much context as possible. The hardest part, which has taken us, over a year and still continually working on it, is understanding the differences, not only in the standards, but the authoring tools. We have been working around the clock. Our team is, noticing all these different differences in versions and how things are formatted from this authoring tool to this authoring tool, and then creating individual parsers based off of Adobe Captivate, Articulate Storyline, Gomo, et cetera, so that you're getting the most accurate and the most data out of that course package. So as we started to kind of bring Rusticity Generator to life, we started to see where and how good parsing can really impact uh, these use cases within a platform, or even if you're a content publisher or dealing with content most often, how you're interacting with these tools that when you have good parsing in them, what it kind of eventually benefits from. If you want to go to the next slide. And that's really integrating it into your interactive and AI tools. We see a lot of people trying to figure out, how they can chat with their SCORM courses, or, you know, have AI interactive pieces after they've finished a course, right? To follow up and double check how that learner did through the course. Did they just scan through it? Can you follow up with, what did you take away from this course? And if the thing that your learner is interacting with doesn't understand what is actually in the course, or has a lot of incorrect information in there, they might end up giving incorrect answers back to the learner. That, if this course was on driving, right, that they all of a sudden said the steering wheel's in the passenger seat, right? That the brake is on the left side of the car, right? That these things all of a sudden start to get muddled, and your learner, whether they know or not, if it's correct or not, you start to run into those errors and loss of effectiveness from the learners taking the course. So putting proper parsing into these interactive tools, that's where you're going to see the most benefit, that they give you more efficiency if you're dealing with, trying to build out courses, but also effectiveness, right, with the learners, and having them interact with these tools, whether in the course or outside of it. And then from here, it actually enables you to do even more, as you implement and integrate good content parsing into these AI tools. You start to run into things like personalization and just administering your library, right? If you're trying to build out more courses, you have a ton of content, right? If you can have AI totally understand what is all in your library, then you'll be 10 steps ahead of, I want to redo this course about driving. I want to redo this course on dog walking, whatever it may be. And it knows exactly where everything is, what's inside of it, more importantly, to a T, that you can more effectively build out these things, personalized per learner, uh, per industry, whatever it may be, where you're trying to go with these new courses. And, even on a even more rudimentary level beyond that, like generating metadata, right? If your team is just purely trying to find courses within your catalog, if they can't find things by title, by description, by keywords, by skill tags, right? If there's inconsistencies, this person put that the skill tag was driving a Hyundai, where then this person said it's driving a Hyundai 2004, right? It's the same course, but there's little inconsistencies build up over time. And then before you know it, like it's just a course about driving. But the more you can implement, the more you can add those details, it's going to build on itself over time that your team can find things more effectively and build out these courses more effectively. And then two, even on the learner side, where you implement these AI tools is totally up to you. It's an expansive universe, as we all have learned, that you can utilize it for your admins, for your learners, and being able to find courses that are relevant to the learner and that they can search by relevant keywords, relevant skill tags, that they are all adequately tagged, that utilizing the content parsing to adequately tag these things is going to help everyone across all the places that your course can reach. So, knowing what we know what good parsing looks like, we know what bad parsing look like, we know where it really impacts either your platform or your courses. Chris, take us from here on what we should be thinking about when we're approaching these
Yeah.
platform tools.
Thanks, Josh. So we've got some relevant questions here, and I'm just going to dive in as we are inching towards the end here. That Kathy, so why are we asking AR to parse our course packages? What are people parsing, and how have you seen people using AI with course data? It's a great question. You can think of the parsing as the first step, because until an AI agent can open the course and fundamentally understand what's inside it, you are limited in building anything else. And most of the AI generated tools that we've seen so far are only looking at the metadata of the course. It infers things from a title. Maybe it has some skills tagging and it infers some things there, but it's not reading each and every word. It's not creating a transcript from the course, because that's really difficult to do. Inside of the zip file that these courses are saved as, it is hard for any robot or human to go in there and piece it together automatically. So why are we parsing things? Because we want deep and accurate knowledge and insights into what we have in our large library of existing content. And unless you parse that intelligently, we are guessing based on the metadata of the course. And I think that this is a big prerequisite to doing all the things that the e-learning industry is excited about, is parsing it properly and fully. So Dan asks, can you state the goal of AI parsing so we know what we're working towards? Dan, anything you're working towards, a learning path, a chat bot, a knowledge base, anything that you're trying to put into an AI agent to do intelligent things later, being able to parse the full library of e-learning packages so that you can take that next step, that is the first key step towards all of this. And what I view as one of the most difficult and challenging parts, because there's not a lot of consistency in the packaging step in the e-learning industry. So we're looking towards Monica. Should we have parsing algorithms that are tool specific? Eventually, if you're building these things yourself, that's not a bad way to imagine how you have to begin to have an agent that parses those things automatically. And I would push further that it is not just building that for an authoring tool. You also have to build it for each and every version, because the way these packages are published, the storage inside it is almost completely bespoke, not only tool to tool, but tools version to tools version. And that compounds the problem and stymies a lot of really smart AI teams that are out building cool things in our space. Unless you can open those packages and figure out what's in them, your team is going to burn months and months and months getting it right. There was another question that says, is Generator able to handle content from a SCORM authoring tool that is homegrown? This is an approach where Rusticy's tool is getting very smart at finding the patterns and understanding how the course is packaged. And our tool would begin, much like this pit crew, to do these things fast over time. We've seen these patterns, we understand what's going on. So Generator, yes, will eventually be able to handle homegrown content far quicker and more elegantly than teams who are doing it in a bespoke way. Important key detail. So back to my slide here, where do you source data for your AI and adaptive tools? You've got to go to your internal team day one and say, hey guys, where is all of our e-learning content? Is it videos? Is it a knowledge base? Is it a collection of onboarding Google Docs? You have to go find your source of truth for these things. And if you're looking at a vendor who's providing off-the-shelf content for you, parsing those and saying, hey, what are we getting? What could we be getting? What options for publishing do we have? Working with your internal teams, your stakeholders, and your vendors to catalog and understand where is all of our learning knowledge really is step one. Once you understand where all of that lives, how is that content stored? Where is it kept? Is it in a learning management system? Is it in an LCMS? Are we just using a video platform? Can you parse it? And if so, can you change what's parsed? So I think that this is a key area to talk about a little bit, because I see AI tools integrated in three ways. Number one, and I view it as the most dangerous, AI gives you what it gets and you don't pitch a fit. Very scary. Oh yeah, do you know how many times my AI has told me to do weird things to my car that are not good advice? We humans are shrewd editors. Giving you a list of descriptions and letting you pick from a good one, giving you an editable description box is far better than get what you get and don't pitch a fit. So how are your AI tools interacting with a human in the loop becomes really important. And then reinventing the wheel and speed. I talk to so many really talented teams that want to go do big stuff with AI, and they get caught up in, well, we don't actually know what's in here. There's a video inside this SCORM file that we can't parse. The video has all the intelligent information. The rest of it's just questions and answers. Being able to parse the whole thing is time consuming. And if you do it perfectly, you do it like everybody else. And that's where the speed comes in. Hey, there might be other tools out there, Rustasy Generator included, that speed up the parsing thing because it is your prerequisite step to doing anything magic with AI. So ask questions today. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that our conversation helps lay out that the opening of the hood, understanding what's inside of all of your e-learning packages is the first step towards a big AI implementation, but it's also the most time-consuming and challenging thing. We've got a couple extra questions in here, and I'm just going to go through them while we have time. So please keep posting them in the chat or ideally the QA part of the air meet.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to just touch on real quick, Chris, which a couple of themes of questions I was seeing was kind of what is the end goal with AI? And I just wanted to hop on that again, is that with AI and content parsing, a lot of times we're seeing people bring content to their LMS, to their LXP, whatever it may be, and they have these AI tools right within there. Hey, we got shiny new, brand new AI, and you bring your courses onto that tool, and it doesn't necessarily fully understand what's going on in that course because it's not utilizing a per authoring tool type of parsing that can fully get a grasp of, what is all in your course. Does it have this type of information? Where is it on particular pages? uh, what type of embedded media is in there? So then you start to see a problem, a disconnect between what your expectations are of these AI tools, especially within your LMS or things that you're building for your team, and then what actually happens afterwards, right? That, hey, this AI is supposed to fully understand everything about what I do, what we teach on. When I go to ask it questions, I get very rudimentary answers of hey, this course is about insert title, right? Instead of it's about this, it goes into these different areas, it's about these skills, competencies, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of the end goal of where we should see proper parsing. We want to see proper parsing pulled into these AI tools, whether they be in an LMS, LXP, et cetera. So I just want
Mhm.
to harp on
Thanks,
that a
Josh.
bit more.
Yeah. So we got a couple questions here that are kind of related. Casey says, so generator lives in the LMS. Paul says, hey, does generator work with courses published in Storyline or Rise? Does the course need to be structured in a way to maximize generator? What advantages will generator provide us versus returning to the authoring tool? So Paul, look, where these AI tools are embedded is probably going to be across the board, right? Authoring tools that are using AI to help you build a better learning experience are fantastic. Please go do those things. You don't need to parse the content in that moment because you are building your content. But once all of these authoring tools save a file as a package, a SCORM file or whatever, it is not intended to be edited at that point. It is a published moment, much like when we save an MP3. Josh and I can do it on GarageBand on my phone and provide the MP3 to somebody, but they don't get to open it up and add their own tambourine solo to that track. That it is a published moment. So you can think of generator and more importantly, parsing as saying, once the content has been built, what's in it? And while the authoring tool and the creator of that course might understand that, an arbitrary learning platform doesn't. So, should generator live in the LMS? That is one place that it might live. Again, Rustasy is quietly behind the scenes in a lot of places. We could help use generator for any audience that needs to better understand what lives inside of this content itself. And once we're parsing all of the content that's in an existing library, think of it as a bookshelf of learning. Once we've learned and read all of the books, we can go build better tools. And that might be something an LMS does to provide better learning journeys. It might be something an LMS does to provide more insights into how content is being used and how it's impacting skills within an organization, or a way to break up the click through slides and take a quiz format and open us up to more of a learning chatbot type of mentality. But until we can read all the books on the shelf, it's very hard to do the other things. And teams are spending most of their time right now reading the books and teaching these robots how to parse this stuff than they are building the cool stuff like Duncan's asking about. How does generation of metadata align with the IEEE standard for learning metadata? Duncan, it's standards on standards, man. Always good to see you. Thanks for being here. We're hopeful that tools like Generator can help change the way metadata in the e-learning industry is used into a more transportable and repurposable format, where what if we parsed all of this content, had really expressive metadata, and take what my Napster library looked like in the early 2000s of just a bunch of file names. How many people only have file names in your LMS and library versus what you see in Spotify today, where we have all of the information, including artist, album, track number, the cover art, all of the things. They are done in a standard way that transfers to every learning system. Because humans are in the loop right now and doing all of that manually, we end up with a lot of really inconsistent metadata. And our goal here is that Generator might be able to take a library of thousands of courses and bring us to a metadata standard with parse text and ready to go for advanced tools automatically. So Duncan, we're working on that. Maurice, I'm a little confused. What is the final product? In Articulate, you can use AI to create the learning content. What can I do with the final export from Articulate? Nothing changes there, Maurice. Use tools to build whatever learning experience you think is best. And if Articulate has the AI tools that help you do that quicker, stronger, better, faster, I'm on board. What we're really looking for here is that next step of, once it's published out of your authoring tool, now what? And that's where Generator can watch what you've created, understand it, have a transcript, and be able to create and generate the metadata that your team needs to go take that next step, to do the extra things beyond creating learning, what's in it, and how are people learning and what are the outcomes. That's what people are really hoping to do with AI on the other side. And you can think of Generator as one little OEM component that helps you understand everything so that you can go build the next cool AI tool on top of it. We're taking on some of the boring work here so that teams can go do more creative things. Are there certain authoring tools that are more difficult to parse than others? Do certain ones stand out as a complex example of what Generator can do? Adrian. I would describe it all as, ideally you just point AI at a big folder full of content and it solves it. So I don't think any one tool is more complicated or a bigger problem than any other tool. By nature, we'll just call SCORM 1.2 as an example here. All of the multimedia that the learner must experience lives inside the zip file. It's all in there. All of the HTML and images and videos, for the most part, live inside of that zip. But there's no rules in the standards where slide number 1 needs to live and how slide number 2 is created and what slide number 3 must contain. It's just a big pile of web deliverable multimedia for the most part. And understanding what made this and how was it stored away into these files and in these structures, and where is slide number 1 and where is slide number 2 and how does all of this text and imagery and video fit together, that's the hard part. And it's not any one tool that's making this difficult. It is just the wide variety of every time you open an e-learning package, the things inside it are going to be different. And having an intelligent tool that can go, oh, I've seen this before, this is how this course progresses, that's the hard part. And one tool doesn't mess this up. It's the variety across all tools that makes it a real challenge.
And on top of that too, that technology isn't a static thing, at least when it comes to LMSs and learning technology, that these authoring tools, whomever you may use, they're constantly updating, constantly improving their systems, how they build courses, what kind of assets you can bring into them. And with every change is a change in how they might structure that data, how they structure where they put particular assets, what they name them. And then with every single change, that's where it just adds another layer of complexity and weaving through the maze to find what is important to you when your course leaves the authoring tool and heads off to your customers, your teams, whomever in their own LMS. So yeah, it's quite the maze. And I see too, he asked about Adrian asked about Swarm Dispatch. That's something too that our team's been working on. It's definitely something too with like AICC that you have these remotely hosted course packages. How can you properly parse something that you don't actually have in front of you? And we're currently working on a few solves for that we should have sometime in the near future. But um, it is something that if you don't have that course, it's not going to be able to properly parse because it's somewhere else. But we have a few solutions there that we'll be able to roll out in the coming future. So
Yeah, Paul has asked a great question. Does the generator work with non-English content? We're pretty agnostic. I see no reason why we couldn't parse content in a variety of languages. We've started with English because that's what most of us speak all day here at Rusticity. But I see no reason why this won't be able to parse content in different languages and ideally even lead to a translated transcription on the other side. That all feels well within bounds of what's possible here. The translation of those things, it's a different AI tool, but the parsing of the content and being able to create a transcript in one language is the first prerequisite step to go and doing cool things on the other side for localization. Mark, you've asked a good question about SOC 2. For frameworks working under these type of security things, how can we balance the speed of AI generated learning content with the need for strict compliance, auditability, and accuracy checks? SOC 2, GDPR, ISO 27001, and others, those are some good frameworks around how teams build things and how they do stuff. You're going to have to push on your own internal teams. You're talking about generative content here, buying an authoring tool that's going to help your instructional designers go faster, stronger, better with more repeatability and less grunt work. That's all great. And looking into the privacy concerns of those authoring products is a different challenge than is our LMS capturing learner data and doing things that have PII associated with them. So if you're on the creation side, there are one set of considerations to make. Are we uploading our PII into a third-party tool that's training other LLMs on our data? That's probably over the line. Or are we putting AI into our learner reports and understanding that, the CEO failed an ethics course 3 times in a row? There are a lot of implications on where this data goes. And your question is specifically about the AI generated learning content, and you should focus your team's thought process and innovation around those things and find ways to get comfortable using those tools. And when the next tool comes along, clean slate, think about it differently, because I don't think one AI policy should apply to all learning events. There are flavors, and context matters a lot. So happy to talk about those things. I play with all of those standards as well all the time. But I don't view them as a huge concern. These feel like solvable problems for organizations that are both small and large. So there you go.
One
Casey. So,
question,
oh,
yeah.
Josh, go
I
ahead.
was,
Yeah, please.
I was gonna jump on Casey's question because that's I think kind of what Chris was pointing to towards the very end in the last slide is, we want to push this out there to make people aware that when you're utilizing AI or when you're building out some sort of engine that pulls in content and then outputs interactions or better creation of content, that your LMS should be able to read any package in a proper way, in a way that's going to give you and their tool the best context. And that's kind of what we see and what we are hoping kind of becomes a generator. And, maybe other people discover with content parsing is that you're able to see those individual differences between all the different types of packages, all the different types of authoring tools, so that you're getting the most for your money when it comes to utilizing your LMS and trying to utilize those AI tools, interactive tools within it. So,
Um, Amy, always good to hear from you. You do have a weird question. Once parsed, can you unparse? Um, Generator itself is the only thing that's doing the parsing, and its output, it's a REST API, so this is an integrated tool, is text for the most part. So if you did parse a course, a SCORM 1.2 package from Articulate Storyline or Rise or Adobe's Captivate or whatever it is, only Generator would have that parsed information. If you saved it again with more descriptions or metadata that generative AI has actually built on top of it, great, that would travel with the course. But I mean, unparsed content is no different than it is today. So it's like if a tree falls in the woods, like it, I don't know. Only Generator knows what is parsed, and I want to keep it neutral. If your own team unpacks some of this stuff, we're not actually modifying the package at all. We're
yeah.
just using some clever tricks to try and figure out exactly what's inside it.
Yeah. I would say too that this question kind of seems more on like, we were talking a bit earlier about what happens. where's the line of AI? Is it before you create your course or is it after? And I feel like this is a bit of before. Like if you have something in your authoring tool that is parsed, right, and you want to use bits of that, that seems like more of a creation moment that you're trying to put something back together rather
Yeah.
than pull it apart, right, and
Yeah.
get all that information out.
Well, Amy rebutted and said, right, I'm just trying to leverage that parse content in interesting
Yeah.
ways. Amy's always excited and brings good energy here.
Yeah.
I think it dovetails into Bobby's question that things I'm wondering about, the analysis across the catalog to find if concepts are consistent or outdated. It would save human time. What about measuring the intensity of interactivity of required end users? Bobby and Amy might hang out. That's learning engineering here. And those are really exciting concepts that AI can help with and align to different Kirkpatrick ideas and all of those things. I think what Josh and I are trying to describe in this time together is that, okay, but under the hood, in order for us to do all of that exciting stuff, and there are people in this room on this call smarter than me about it, unless you fully parse the content, which is harder than you think across the e-learning industry, getting to all of those ideas takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
And it's the reason I think we've seen a little bit of a stop-start mentality to how some of these AI tools are coming out in the e-learning space, is that when we go to systems of scale, large military organizations, large corporate structures with a lot of compliance training, the off-the-shelf library is big, diverse, and all manner of packages. And until we can parse all of that stuff to see what's in the library today, it's hard to save human hours and to run analysis and find skills gaps and do all the things. So that first step is let's read all the books on the bookshelf real fast. And once we've done that, we can go do all of these really exciting, good ideas that are kind of gate kept by what's really in our library.
Hmm.
All right. Paul asks the last question. He promises. So we're going to take him for his word. What will the pricing structure and cost for using Generator be? It's also part pairing all the data from packages in a useful, oh, sorry, it's a different question. Paul, Generator's business model right now is based on largely how much we are parsing for somebody. It's aligned with the compute costs and storage and things that we are taking on to run Generator itself. But Generator can also be run by teams on their own servers, with their own LLM, their own vectorized database. So we've had a couple people here on this call say, hey, we're going through our own corporate governance, we're going through our own AI project and rules. So it's across the board right now. We can host it for you. You can do it yourself. Regardless, it scales based on its impact. How many packages are we parsing and generating content for each year? That's roughly our structure. I'd love to talk more about the size of your challenge. How big is your bookshelf? What type of content are you putting in there? There's a lot of levers that go along that, but you can kind of think of it as we align ourselves to the value that we are parsing for you guys. Yeah,
I wanted
so
to do a quick shout out to because some people mentioned demo or wanting to see generator in action, kind of on that pricing question. Uh, we do have a quick demo on the site. If you go to either just Rusty Generators URL here on the slide, or there was a link in the chat a little earlier. You can feel free to check that out. Or if you're really interested, our sales team would always be happy to chat and go through any questions.
awesome. Thank you all for joining today. I hope you learned a few things about how AI is progressing in the industry. I hope it's inspired you, Amy, you specifically. What's possible? What could we go do if we knew what was in all of our content? But more importantly, thanks for taking the time to look under the hood a little bit, understand the complexities of all of these packages, and hey, ask us anything really. we're learning along the way, just like everybody is right now in this moment. And those conversations are hopefully helpful for you guys, but I know Josh and I would enjoy hearing from you as well. Everybody's bringing their own new, unique niche and concern or idea to this table, and we're here to listen to them and help you guys get up to speed faster. So thank you so much for joining. As always,
Thank you.
ask us anything, really. We appreciate your time. Have a great afternoon.